kick off, and in a lot of ways, great to get them back, because so much of the work that gets put in throughout the off season with the coaches, you start to get sick of it. You know, you want to get some of that stuff put into practice is really what I mean, is with fundamentals, techniques, concepts, 3 better, 3 best with our players. Like you're kind of chomping at the bit, especially like I mentioned last time after you go to the owners meetings, and it gets a little bit more competitive and ready to go.
Just how important is this time of year for like building the foundation of the team, starting to get the guys to, the locker room together?
That's huge. Mentioned that this morning to the guys, that we have to attack our relationships, the communication, the way that we operate with each other on a day-to-day basis, because there are new faces. There's a lot of familiar, which is great, continuity, which is awesome, but we have to attack our relationships in the way that we approach every single day at a high clip for us to be able to go where we want to go.
Obviously, it's voluntary right now, but what have been your initial impressions 4 hours in terms of participation? Great, really good participation. The guys were locked in, answering questions in the meetings, very engaged in the team meeting. Coach Arciano got up and spoke about the Iron Jags and went through that. Went through some of the draft that's coming up for that this week. And then both offense, defense split up. Both those groups and coordinators were able to talk to the unit, showed a lot of examples of good stuff and then areas in which we can improve. And then they broke up individually to the position groups and then started to dive into 3 better, 3 best to the specific player. And while those guys were meeting with the coaches, the other coaches, assistant position coaches, took the rest of the group and started to kind of get through some initial, remembering of terms and concepts and things like that. So based off that, it sounds like it's a lot. There's a lot of guys here.
Yeah. Oh
you
yeah.
Put a number on it.
Absolutely. No, it was. Look, it's voluntary, and so we just appreciate guys, taking the time, and anybody's not here, like, it's totally been communicated and understood. Like, there's no surprises. The guys are all seem like they're in a good place.
I know you guys won't really be in a practice setting for a few weeks, but it was this time last year when Parker and Buster kind of really started turning heads.
Yeah.
What do you kind of look for from players around this time to know they're kind of ascending?
Yeah, like you can see obviously the guys that are putting in a little extra time, maybe, because especially last year so much was new, right? And so you could see the people, the players that ascended a little bit earlier, how much maybe time they were putting in extra, meeting with coaches as much as they could, just chomping at the bit to get down to the fundamentals, text, and but also take it to the next level to go make a play. We were just worried about lining up in a lot of ways. So look, there's so many guys that have that opportunity, and that's the beauty of this time. That's the beauty of, it's not really like we're judging every single thing for competition on the depth chart, and we're trying to compete in everything we do, but it's so much more about learning the toolboxes now that we can maybe move forward past lining up and bunch right. We can get into some of the details in the toolbox kit for these players, so we can go and take our next game in this organization's game to the next level.
Did you guys do the 3 better, 3 best with coaches too?
Yeah, so I basically did something like that with the coaches, where met with each coach in all 3 phases and sort of gave them a little bit of a 3 better, 3 best, and maybe it was 2 or whatever it was for each coach to go and work on throughout the spring and in the winter time. So when we do meet again come May, June, before we cut out of here, we can touch on a few of those areas in which maybe we've challenged coaches to improve, to grow, to lean into things in areas in which they did well as coaches and staff members. But I know Tony and James did a lot similar with a lot of the people in this building, and we did no different with the coaches.
What did you do for yours?
What's that?
What were yours?
My boss, the owner, he tells me.
3 better, 3 best?
Yeah, I mean, we obviously talk about a few areas in which you want to continue to grow. I think one being, as a first-year coach, you're so concerned with the time management piece, and not just in your day-to-day, but also on game day, and what that looks like. Trusting the people around you, and coming to the conclusions and not looking back, and whatever decision you make, to live with it and to not dawn on it too much and worry about what you did. And sometimes I think as coaches we have a tendency, especially myself, to look at too many of the negative things, and you start harping on that, and ultimately you can only do your best.
Hey Liam, what with the trade last week, what didn't click with Mason, and what did you like about the guy you acquired?
No, it wasn't necessarily, and it didn't. I have a lot of respect for Mason Smith. I hope he has a heck of a career. He did nothing but what we asked him to do from a work ethic standpoint, from doing the right things, and what we asked of him. And just, we felt like we had an opportunity to potentially get an ascending player that can provide a little bit in the rush. It's hard to find big men that can move like that on the interior part of your defense without giving up in the run game. Is something we want to continue to be top notch at, which we were in the NFL this past season, but something we want to look at. That Roop gives us an opportunity to big man that can move, that can get in the rush plan as well, and show the ability to get to the quarterback a little bit. So that was something that we felt like was going to fit for us.
Assuming he's here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, big man.
He's here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was good. We talked briefly after the team meeting, and just what a fresh opportunity, fresh start for us being in our second year as an organization together with this group. It's a great time to come in as somebody that we can lean into, that's got a ton of talent that we want to be able to help get his game to the next level.
Liam, how are you guys coming out of last year injury-wise? I know obviously there's a lot of attention on Travis, and you guys touched on that 2 weeks ago. Well, what about a guy like Cole Van Landen?
Yeah.
And maybe some others that, are they gonna be longer?
I don't have exact timelines on some of those guys. I think obviously Travis, Cole, like those guys aren't going to be probably doing too much throughout the offseason program, like in terms of practice, right? They'll be doing a lot of rehab, getting on the side, being able to utilize some of the the virtual meeting room downstairs to get some mental reps in there. That's a way that we can kind of facilitate some of the reps that they're missing. Specifically off the top of my head, let's see who else could be. Jordan, J. Lou, similar ballpark. Like, we're not expecting those guys to probably hit the grass this spring in competitive situations, but they're gonna get a ton of reps. We've got, we expanded the downstairs with that virtual meeting room to make it a little bit more realistic, and so those guys are gonna be able to utilize that room a lot of times during practice to be able to go get some mental reps, and I think that's going to be huge for those guys this offseason.
We do want to see out of Trevor over the next 2 months.
Yeah, I think when we get out on the grass specifically, is that the expectation is that he's kind of playing at the level at which he was towards the end of the season, right? From a footwork standpoint, an ownership of the system, communication, cadence, overall command, and also throwing and catching the football. I think that's something that it's important for us to go take a next step as a receiving group, as a tight end group, running backs, everybody that's involved in the pass game specifically. But for him, the leadership, the command, and also the way that he was throwing the football towards the end of the season, the expectation is that we pick off there and let's roll.
Outside of the running game, which we've talked about a little bit, is there any other specific areas of the offense that you're really looking to lock in on this offseason?
Yeah, I think explosives versus negatives, right? Like, how many negative plays do you have per game versus explosives per game? That's something we're always looking at. It's hard to execute 10, 11, 12 play drives without something bad happening or a negative play occurring, and what a negative play actually does to a drive. And then also improving in situational football, specifically third down on offense and defense, and also in the red zone on both offense and defense in terms of scoring touchdowns versus not allowing your opponent to score touchdowns. So you look at, hey, how can we be more explosive, limit some of those negative plays, whether it be by penalty, sack, negative yard rush, and then get better in third down and red zone are definitely some areas we're looking to improve upon.
A lot of really good things in your first year, a couple of valleys as well, but it felt like the team was able to remain even keel regardless of highs or lows. Now with it being a year later, and I realize it's only been a few hours, can you feel that? Can you see that a year later, the difference?
Yeah, probably less guys looking at me like I got something on my forehead, like when I'm talking, and just just guys speaking the same language, understanding what the standards are, in terms of the way we operate in the meeting room, the way that we communicate with each other. That was very clear within, this half a day we've been here so far, that guys are serious. I've heard the word win a lot, like guys root when I talk to them, I just want to win some games, coach, and so if we have a we above me mentality, which I believe this room, that room of guys does, and they do it the right way, you can definitely feel maybe a little bit more confidence in the standard and confidence in the continuity of how we operate. I think I saw Brent Strange's quotes the other day was like, it's nice to come back and at least know the schedule, like know what's coming, right, every day, and that doesn't necessarily allow for complacency. It allows for, man, I can go attack other things because I'm not stressing the day-to-day and what's going on every minute of the day.
How much does your playbook change in year two? And how much can you enhance on it now that, people know you got it down?
Honestly, if anything, we really looked at the self-scout throughout the offseason, where are the areas in which we can improve, and then what's not even worth it. So honestly, if anything, it was addition by subtraction. I'll be honest. It was a lot of, man, how can we get better at these core concepts, and what's not worth it, especially not in the spring, right? Like maybe something that we can touch on when we have more time in training camp, or when you have a little bit more of a practice and then a walkthrough at night, right? So we really, it was a lot more subtraction this offseason, and looking at what run concepts do we not need right now to just go get good at a few things and try to emphasize those things. Same thing with the pass game on offense is, all right, how can we continue to do what these guys do best? Well, man, we need to improve here to attack people in the fall versus, man, that's not something we need.
Right.
And it goes to the same on defense. It's like, okay, how can we get better in all phases on defense without adding too much to these guys' plate? If anything, let's try to subtract and refine.
Where's the screen game for you offensively? Where does this you obviously had some hits, but you probably had more misses than hits last year in that aspect. Where's that for you in terms of getting it better?
We've talked about that a lot. It's like, you can use, obviously, I love the screen. I've always been a huge fan of the screen game, not just because of how it attacks the defense, but because being a little bit of a breather play for the quarterback, helps your O-line out, the pressure. It's 100% going to be of importance this spring. We're going to do multiple different circuits. We've got coming to subtraction.
Yeah.
Let's subtract all these other ones that we put in last spring that we never even really got to, that all that did was water down the ones maybe we were somewhat good at, right? So that's a huge area in which we're like, okay, what receiver screens are best? And then who do we want to throw that receiver screen to? And let's work on that. Okay, what are our best running back and tight end screens? How do we try to simulate that in the off season without a real rush and without pads? Because so much of the screen game is being a good actor. And when you don't get live reps at being an actor all the time, it's hard to sometimes go simulate that in even a course of a week of practice against your scout team. Because you tell the DN to rush, well, what if it doesn't feel real to them? Now we're asking our scout team to do something that's not realistic, and now your screen sucks. So it's just, it's an area I want to improve on, and I think we can improve on.
Going back to Trevor, just quickly, last year obviously he was going through rehab. He wasn't really able to have a normal offseason. How much more can you put on his plate this time of the year now that he doesn't have to really do all that?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, he wasn't even throwing for a long time. We were working so much more on the above the neck and the waist down so much of last spring. And if we can start kind of in a lot of ways where we left off, in a lot of ways for him to be able to take that next jump of complete ownership of what we're getting accomplished pre-snap, that whole operation, so we don't snap it under 5, and then to be able to execute once you get the ball in your hands, because look, so much happens for the quarterback pre and post snap, and it's true. When we would like to be able to give him more ops to play faster too, right? Like there's that fine line between being in the perfect play, having a number of different cans and kills and alerts, versus, man, let's just call and run it, let those guys just go play. And I think, if anything, we'd like to lean more into that this spring, because that now makes the quarterback, all right, post snap, I've got to have a 3 deep answer, quarters answer, man answer, 2, and I got to know where those are and find a completion. Sometimes when you live in the Canon Premier world, you're almost, I don't want to say paralyzing the player, but you're not letting them maybe be as creative as possible, and you're dictating to him where the ball should go. So it's that balance. There's a lot of good things that we can learn from, but if he can take that growth of complete ownership this spring, and I'm excited about getting an opportunity to do it.
Coach, thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Great guys.